Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's presentation entitled Sage Intacct Bank Reconciliation, brought to you by Ledgerable, a BTerrell company where we're in our 35th year of upgrading small and mid-sized general and specialty contractors from QuickBooks or a legacy on-premises construction, financial, and project management application to Sage Intacct Construction, the only construction accounting application ever named by the AICPA as their preferred provider of financial applications. I'm Brian Terrell. I'm the managing partner at Ledgerable. And I'm joined today by Ruby Cheng, who will be delivering our presentation. Ruby is a senior professional services team leader with 7 years of experience in mid-market construction, financial, and project management technology. I've heard Ruby present before, and you're in for a treat. Before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you're here for continuing professional education credit, today's presentation qualifies for 1 hour of CPE, and all we ask is that you respond to the polling questions that you'll see pop up from time to time and complete our post-webinar evaluation form, which will appear in your inbox in the next couple of days. Here's an example of what a polling question would look like. It'll pop up on your screen. This question's not a throwaway question. It actually serves a purpose. Please answer yes if you'll be looking for CPE credit from today's presentation. We'll make a note of that in our records, and it'll give you an opportunity to practice on complying with this requirement that the Texas State Board of Public Accountancy gives CPE sponsors for making sure that all of our ducks are in a row. A couple of additional housekeeping reminders. We've turned the audio and video off for participants in order to minimize distractions, but that doesn't mean we don't welcome your questions. In fact, we really hope you will prepare and present those questions to us by using that Q&A button that you see on the Zoom toolbar. And also, in order to keep you from having to worry about taking notes or screenshots, we're recording the presentation, and we'll send you that link to the recording tomorrow or in the coming days that you can use to go back and take a look at important parts of this presentation that you want to revisit. Maybe you have a colleague in your office that was unable to join. Please feel free to share that with them. Or maybe you have a peer at in the industry and in another trade group, maybe in the CFMA, that you'd like to share this important information with. Without any further delay, let's turn the screen over to Ruby, who I know is ready with what I believe will be a very informative and helpful presentation. Ruby?
Thank you, Brian, for the warm introduction. And hello, everyone. Again, my name is Ruby, and I'm really excited to spend this hour with you today. We are going to explore bank reconciliation, one of the most underrated but absolutely essential tools in Sage Intacct. Today isn't just about clicking buttons. It's about building confidence in your numbers, reducing manual work, and making your month-end close smoother and faster. Some of you may already be familiar with some of the content today, as this webinar was delivered earlier this year. However, I promise you there are going to be new contents for you in there as well. And for the newcomers, here's what we'll cover. First, we're going to talk about why reconciliation is so important. Then we'll look at how Sage Intacct simplifies and automates the process. Next, I will walk you through a demo of bank feeds, matching, and reporting. And after the demo, we'll look at the new enhancements from the different 2025 releases. And lastly, we'll wrap up with some Q&As. And by the end of today's session, you will have a crystal clear understanding of how reconciliation in Sage Intacct boosts accuracy, speed up your close, and strengthen internal controls. Now, to get a sense of who is in the room today, let's start with a quick poll. How are you currently doing your bank reconciliations? We have manually in Excel, manually in another ERP, in Sage Intacct, or not sure and new to this. There is no right or wrong answer here, and that goes for all the questions here today. This is just to help us understand the range of the experience. And once we have all of the answers here, we're going to move on to our next slide. So let's start with the bigger picture. Bank reconciliation isn't just a task. It's a core financial control that protects your organization. It's the moment where your internal records meets the real world, and we confirm whether the story in our general ledger matches the story the bank is telling. Every recognized accounting framework, from SOX to your auditor's internal control checklist, calls out reconciliation as a foundational control. And that's because the reconciliation is often the very first place where financial issues show up. For example, auditors frequently find misstatements that originate from skipped or delayed reconciliations. A check that was voided in the ERP but still cleared at the bank. An ACH debits a company didn't authorize. A deposit that appeared in the ERP but never actually hit the bank. I always tell the teams that financial systems can create a sense of certainty, but reconciliation gives you the actual certainty. The GL can say whatever it wants, but the bank is the truth. Reconciliation is the bridge between these two worlds. Think of it like a regular medical checkup. You might feel fine, your body might feel fine, but only the test results will tell you what's actually happening. Bank reconciliation is to your books what blood works is to your health. You need it to validate what's going on. When you treat reconciliation as a top-tier control rather than a tedious back-office task, everything in finance becomes sharper. Reporting, forecasting, decision-making, and even audit readiness. Now, why don't our book match the bank? Because there are so many moving parts that happen in different timelines. And even something simple, like making a deposit at 4 p.m., can post differently at the bank versus in your books. Banks also shift posting dates when the transaction crosses a weekend or holidays. Then you have ACH rules. Some banks process ACH withdrawals at midnight, while others do a 4-hour earlier sweep. So your ERP may show the withdrawal on Wednesday, but the bank would post it on Tuesday. And these timing differences matter because they impact the cash planning. Even in a healthy financial environment, these mismatches are constant. They're not sign of problems, they're sign of movements. But unless you reconcile, you don't really know which differences are harmless and which are the early warnings of actual problems. Timing differences seem small, but they compound very quickly, especially when managing multiple accounts or multiple entities. For example, you may expect a cash balance of $800,000, but $300,000 of that is actually outstanding checks and delayed settlements. Without the reconciliation, leadership is making decisions based on a number that isn't real, and that affects cash planning, payroll timing, and investment decisions. Reconciliation turns cash from a guess into a fact. Now, here is the analogy that I like to use. A small mismatch, called early, is just like a light breeze. You see it, you feel it, you know what caused it, you fix it, and you move on. But if you left it alone for 30 days, that light breeze becomes a full-blown accounting tornado. Dozens of transactions piled on top of it, multiple team members wearing uncleared references or outdated notes, reversals, corrections, voids, disappearing audit trail contacts, people who handled the transaction no longer remembering what happened. By then, you're not solving a single discrepancy. You're reconstructing the history. And if you have ever experienced the tornado version of the reconciliation, you'd remember it forever. And here's where things get serious. When reconciliation isn't done, or isn't done regularly, issues don't just sit quietly, they grow. The first thing you lose is visibility into true cash. You might think you have 500,000 available, but 200,000 of that hasn't cleared. Suddenly, your available cash number is an illusion, not the reality. You may be preparing for a major payroll run, and according to the ERP, you have a comfortable buffer. But an unexpected ACH withdrawal had cleared the bank early, reducing your available balance by nearly 80,000. Because no one had reconciled during that week, the team wouldn't see the issue until the day of the payroll, creating unnecessary stress and last-minute scrambling. The next thing you will have is errors that slip through unnoticed. The duplicated payments, typos, incorrect codings, and misapplied deposits all hide in the unreconciled data. This is incredibly common. You've got 2 ACH payments that's sent instead of 1, a vendor check that was reissued, but the first one wasn't voided, a bank fee coded as a revenue by accident, or a deposit that was counted twice. A company that I worked with had accidentally issued the same 32,000 vendor payment twice. In the ERP, there was only one payment showing, but at the bank, both checks was cleared. Because the reconciliation wasn't performed for that month, no one had noticed that until a quarter later, causing the issue with the vendor, with the cash flow, and with the year-end reporting. This is a classic example of why reconciliation matters. The book says one thing, the bank says another, and no one caught the gap for months. If you catch it early, it's simple. If you catch it late, it's expensive. Another thing is that fraud becomes harder to detect. Fraud rarely announces itself. It's always hidden in those small unreconciled gaps. Without reconciliation, fraudulent withdrawals or unauthorized charges may blend into the daily activities. One organization experienced a nearly $5,000 unauthorized ACH withdrawal. It wasn't in the ERP, it wasn't flagged, it simply cleared the bank like a normal transaction. And because reconciliation wasn't done regularly, they didn't notice it until months later, and by which time the bank's dispute window had already closed, and that money is lost forever. And that's a painful yet preventable example of why timely reconciliation is a key safeguard against fraudulent activities. And lastly, your month-end close slows down. If reconciliation starts at month-end instead of being maintained throughout the months, your GL teams scramble, the controller wait, the leadership wait, and auditors wait, and everything just gets bottlenecked. And that ultimately leads to the team losing confidence. And there is nothing worse than having to say, I think this is the number. Let me double check. Good reconciliation eliminates that uncertainty. This brings us to a harsh reality that many organizations still face, that not every ERP includes a native reconciliation tool. And that forces teams to rely on Excel spreadsheets, manual matching, exports from the bank, external templates, and ad hoc processes. For a single bank account, this may be manageable. But as soon as you introduce multiple entities, shared bank accounts, intercompany transfers, or large transaction volumes, Excel becomes very fragile very quickly. The problem with doing reconciliation outside of the ERP is predictable. You have no audit trail, no accountabilities, no version control, no standardized process, and no real-time visibility, and a lot of manual work. If the spreadsheet goes down, the person who built it is out sick, or the formulas break, the entire process just comes to an end. And that's why so many companies come to us asking for a better way. When the organizations eventually reach a tipping point where manual reconciliation is just no longer sustainable. And that sets the stage for why Sage Intacct's building tools make such a significant difference. So, to recap, when reconciliation is done manually, organizations end up with disconnected systems, duplicated data entry, limited audit trail, no real-time visibility into cash, poor scalability across accounts or entities, increased risk of undetected fraud, errors that snowball into costly corrections. And this is the perfect point for us to transition into how Sage Intacct addresses every single one of these issues, not with bolt-on tools, but the reconciliation built directly into the financial core of the system. In Sage Intacct, reconciliation isn't an add-on. It builds right into the general ledger, the cash management, the payment workflow, and the bank feeds. This matters because it eliminates the structural gap that causes reconciliation delays. Every cash movement, payments, deposits, bank fees, electronic transfers, flow through a controlled workflow that ties directly into the GL. This means your reconciliation process is fully tied to your financial system of record and not leaving in a spreadsheet off to the side. The mismatched deposit, you can click right into the GL detail instantly. A bank fee that you didn't expect, you can post a journal entry directly within the reconciliation screen. And need to trace a check that was cut, approved, posted, and cleared, every piece of that information is linked because it all lives inside the same ecosystem. From an audit perspective, this is the dream scenario. There's one system of truth, one structured approval process, one audit trail, and no circling reconciliation between the different tools. When your subledger and your bank activities are synchronized, you get accuracy, visibility, and compliance built into your daily operation. Sage Intacct also offers the direct bank feeds, and this is one of the biggest time saver in reconciliation because now you have transactions flow in automatically. There is no downloading the file. There is no manual cleanup of the columns. The file format don't break the process, and you're always working with the most recent data. The bank sends the activity, Sage Intacct processes it, your team reviews it. It's predictable, clean, and consistent. Everything is centralized. Book transactions, bank feed transactions, the matching, the clearing, the adjustments, and the audit history. There's no juggling tabs, no toggling between the systems, and no guesswork. When reconciliation is done inside Sage Intacct, you gain 3 big advantages. First of all, you will have confidence. Your numbers are accurate and tied directly to the GL. There's no surprises at month end, no more. We will know cash once we reconcile. Because reconciliation is built into the ERP, CFOs, controllers know the numbers they see reflect reality, and not from a spreadsheet from last week. Next, you will have control. You have permissions and approvals and full audit visibilities. You can restrict who can clear the transactions. You know who cleared what and when. You can review who reconciled what. Your auditors will love you. And lastly, we have speed. The matching and clearing can happen in bulk instead of manually reviewing each transactions. Reconciliation time drops from hours to minutes because Intacct automates the work. Typically, teams often see month-end close shrink by 1 to 2 days just from tightening up the reconciliation process. Company often tells us that they used to reconcile monthly. With Intacct, they're now reconciling weekly or even daily because it's that easy now. Now, before we go deeper into how Sage Intacct automates the reconciliation, let's do a quick pulse check here. We talked about why reconciliation matters, but now I'm curious about how often you're currently doing it. So here's our next poll. How often do you perform bank reconciliation? Daily, weekly, monthly, or never. And again, there is no judgments here, I promise. Go ahead and pick whichever one sounds most like to you. I always love this question because the answer we get usually spread across the whole spectrum. The daily reconcilers, you're the financial equivalent of people who folds laundry straight out of the dryer. You like order, you sleep better when there's nothing left undone. The weekly reconcilers, you're balanced and structured, like someone who meal preps on Sunday, but absolutely orders DoorDash twice during the week. And the monthly reconcilers, you're the we will cross that bridge when we get there group. And honestly, you're in the majority in the finance teams. And for those of you who chose never, you are the brave pioneers living on the edge. But I promise you after today, you may never want to leave that dangerously again. The reality is, reconciliation frequency directly affects how much manual work you do. The longer the gap, the bigger the pile. The bigger the pile, the harder it is to catch the errors. And the harder it is, the more we procrastinate. It just becomes a whole vicious cycle. But it doesn't have to be. One of the biggest advantages of Sage Intacct is that it allows reconciliation to become a natural daily habit instead of a monthly financial exercise. While the answers are coming in, I want you to think about this. How much easier would reconciliation be if you didn't have to wait for the month end to spot issues, missing transactions, or surprises? This pool gives us a sense of where everyone is starting from and where automations can help you level up. Now, let's talk about what Sage Intacct actually enables once you bring the reconciliation inside the system. You're seeing 4 points on this slide, but I want to go deeper because the impact is far bigger than what fits into a bullet list. First, you will get the real-time data, and that equals to the real-time awareness. This is one of the biggest shifts for organizations moving from a manual spreadsheet reconciliation to embrace the automation. In Sage Intacct, your bank transactions flow into the system automatically, like a real-time pulse check on your organization's cash movement. You're no longer waiting for the month-end statements or manually exporting the data. You're seeing the activities as they happen. Imagine you're waiting for a customer for $1,200,000 wire to hit your account, so you can release material or schedule a subcontractor payment. In a traditional system, you wouldn't know it arrived until you either logged into the bank manually or waited for someone to download the statement. In Sage Intacct, that wire appears automatically through the bank feed moments after the bank posts it. Your cash balance updates in real time, so you can act immediately instead of guessing. It's not just cleaner, it's safer. Issues surface quickly instead of weeks later. You also have the automatic transaction matching, and this is where Sage Intacct saves teams hours, if not days. The system can automatically match a huge portion of your bank transactions to your book using the flexible match rules. Think of recurring payments, loan payments, merchant fees, software subscriptions, payroll withdrawals, things that happen on a predictable cadence. Let's say your company pays $3,000 to the same vendor on the first of every month. In the manual system, you'd have to scroll through your GL, scroll through your bank feed, and match it by hand every single month. In Sage Intacct, a single match rule handles it forever. The moment the bank feed brings in that charge, the system knows exactly where it belongs and match it instantly. There's no searching, no scrolling, no manual cross-checking. Instead of manually going through the GL and clicking match one by one, the system handles the heavy lifting for you. Once the rules are in place, Intacct typically handles 60, 70, or even 90% of your matching automatically. You become the reviewer and not the data entry person. And this is where the teams start saying, wait, reconciliation doesn't have to hurt. You also get immediate discrepancy detection, and this part is often overlooked, but incredibly valuable. If something doesn't match, a duplicate check, a missing deposit, an unexpected fee, you don't find out during month-end panic. You find out early enough to course correct. Early detection is everything, and Sage Intacct brings discrepancies to the surface instantly. It's like moving from looking at a monthly security camera summary to having a live alert when something goes wrong. You also will not be dealing with external tools or broken spreadsheets. If you ever reconciled in Excel, you know the pain. The hidden rows, broken formulas, mismatched columns, that one person who built the reconciliation file but left the company, it becomes a black box that no one wants to touch. In Sage Intacct, it's just part of your workflow. There's no tuckling, no duct taping the processes, no hoping your spreadsheet for formulas behave today. Everything lives inside your ERP, and everything stays in sync. And honestly, it just feels better working inside a system that's designed for accounting rather than wrestling with the spreadsheets. And let me explain what this feels like with the favorite seasonal topic, the airport security. Think of automation in Sage Intacct like having TSA pre-check at the airport. By the way, if you don't know what that is or don't already have that, learn about it, get it, just trust me on this and what it will do for your holiday travels. It's just amazing. Now, during the bank reconciliation manually, especially if you're matching the transactions one by one, it's kind of like standing in that long, slow-moving general security line, which is the one that's showing on the left of the screen here. You show up, the security line is wrapped around the corner. And by the way, I was at the airport a couple weeks ago, and when I was there, no joke, the general security line is like 5,000 feet long, where people are taking off their jackets, belts, shoes, and forgetting that they had a full bottle of water and go through every single step manually. It's just chaos. And that's manual reconciliation. Every transaction is a potential delay. Every mismatch requires investigation. The amount of people in the line here, that represents your workload. Now, imagine instead you walk straight into the TSA pre-check lane. There's no shoes off, no laptop out, no juggling 5 different trays and your dignity. You glide through security like an airport VIP. And that's what Sage Intacct does with automation, where automation already knows what to look for. It clears recurring matches, groups routine transactions, and flag only the items that truly need your review. If you're not skipping the security, you're experiencing it with less friction, more intelligence, and way fewer surprises. The process is still important, but instead of slowing you down, it elevates you. And just like TSA pre-check doesn't remove safety, Intacct does not remove control. It enhances it. You still review, you still approve, but the system handles the heavy lifting, so you can focus your energy where it matters. And once you have experienced the fast lane, nobody volunteers to go back to the long line again. And now that you have seen how Sage Intacct speeds up the reconciliation, the same way TSA pre-check streamlines airport security, let me show you what that looks like inside the application. So, for today, we have prepared the demo in 3 folds. For the first demo, we're going to focus on the bank fee transactions within Sage Intacct. If you still remember, these are the transactions that brought directly from the bank into the system. We'll take a look at how they look like altogether and learn how to convert a bank fee transaction into the book transaction seamlessly. All right, so we're going to start our demo here. And for all the demos here, you will all see us starting from the cash management module, which is where all the magic happens. So we're going to go to cash management, and we're going to go to the bank transactions. So again, on this list here, everything is directly coming from the bank. We did not create any of these. These are from the bank connection. And you can see the information given here. It includes what kind of transaction this is, which checking account it is coming from, the amount, as well as the payee versus description, and it also has the reconciliation status. So if a transaction from the bank is already matched with a transaction in the book, for example, this one here, it will give you the information of the book transaction as well. Now, if we look at a unmatched transaction here, you will see that this section is blank. So the other way to look at the bank transaction, which is more direct, is to through each of the checking accounts that's connected with the bank feed. Now, you get the same information from the last page as well, but in addition, you will also have the action links in order to perform different actions you want to with these transactions that are directly coming from the bank. You can either match it or create it as a transaction in the book, which is what we're going to do here today. So we think this is the interest that we earned on this account. So what we're going to do is we're going to assign the dimensions and make sure it looks okay, and then directly post it into our book. So let's go ahead and save that. And now you can see this transaction had disappeared from this list. Because we were in the unmatched list, now we're going to go to the matched list. You can see while we create this transaction, it also created a match in the reconciliation. So you no longer need to go to reconciliation and match this transaction again. Now let's look at this from the reconciliation screen once more. So while we're here, you can see the bank fee status is connected. And when we're inside of the reconciliation, it will also show you when the last bank fee date were. Now, for the overall reconciliation, we're currently on the Intacct tab, meaning these transactions are the book transactions. And in the Bank tab, we're the bank transactions that are coming from the bank feed. In the book transaction here, you can see a lot of our transactions are prior to 2025, meaning that we just didn't get caught up on our bookkeeping. We're just some really lousy accountants here. But on the bank side, everything is caught up from at least through May 2025. You also have these action links in this screen to directly create the transaction in the book, which is what we did previously on the other screen. Now, looking at the two screens, we noticed there were at least a couple of transactions in 2025 that we get to match them with. For example, this first one. So we're going to use this as an example. On the top, we have our amount from the bank, and at the bottom, we have our amount from the book. So we're going to just pair it with this one transaction and make sure the remaining to match is zeroed out. And then we're just going to hit match. Now, this one transaction is now matched between our bank transaction that flow directly from the bank versus the existing transactions in the book. And you will notice that interest earned transaction at the bottom is still there as it's part of the reconciliation as we move through the bank feed transactions. So this is both inside the bank as a reconciled transaction in the book and in the bank. Now, that is the end of this demo. Now that we have seen the bank feed, let us shift our focus to the next section, where we're going to dive deeper into using customizable match rules. This demo will explain the setup of the match rules and demonstrate how they can be applied to streamline the reconciliation. You will also see how automatic matches are reviewed and how transactions are efficiently reconciled to the book. We're going to once more go to our cash management module. And instead of going to the bank transactions, that's the wrong demo. Sorry. That is not demo. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here we're going to first take a look at the rules that we created. So here are the two simple match rules. They're very straightforward. It covers some situations that we see from the bank transactions. But you can see at the bottom here, it's matched based on the posting date, the document number, and the amount from between the bank transaction versus Intacct transactions. And here are the list of fields that is available to be matched between the bank versus Intacct or book transaction. Now, once we have reviewed these rules, we'll then take a look at the reconciliation. So for this one, we're not using the one that's connected with the bank feed, but instead we're going to bring in the bank transactions a different way. So you can see the bank feed status here is not connected. So just taking a look at the screen here, you will notice instantly that this screen only has one tab. So it only has the book transaction. It does not have the bank transaction yet, which is different from what we just saw from the other screen of the other account that's connected with the bank feed. And again, these transactions are in 2023. We're also reconciling in a similar period, so this is okay. And before we move on, let's just make sure there's nothing matched in here already, and just make sure we're starting from a clean slate. All right, so next we're going to take a look at the bank transactions that we're going to bring in. I know some of you might ask that why are we still bringing in the bank transactions if they're already connected through bank feed? So this is only for demonstration purposes, but the match rule will be in effect once these transactions hits the system. Also, there are situations like if you're using a foreign bank or if the bank is local or regional that does not offer the connection to the bank feed, then these will be the alternative options to resolve that. But still take advantage of Sage Intacct's incredibly powerful match rules. Now, with this, let's see here, this bank feed, with this file, you'll notice that this will include the different types of transactions, the document numbers, the posting date, and the amount, which is important in our match rules, as that's what our rules are based off. However, if you want to fine-tune it, you can also use descriptions or payee information in order to have a more refined rules. Now, one last step before we go into the reconciliation is that we want to make sure this checking account is associated with the rules that we created. So it looks like the O2 account is not added here. So we're going to add our O2 checking account in here so that it can, the rules can be in effect when we bring those transactions in. Now, we can go and start our reconciliation. So here we are on the screen again. Instead of continue, what we're going to do is we're going to import the file we just saw and then be able to see how the rules play into effect. Now here we are, added the feed. We're going to click done here and then just hit continue on the next screen. So once we're inside of the reconciliation, you will know right away that unlike the other screen we just saw, there is only one transaction left on this screen. So you might ask, where did all the one go? That actually means that our match rules were playing what it should be, that matched majority of the transactions that we just imported. So all of these transactions are automatically matched by the system. We didn't do anything in between. The system matched the transactions as they come in. Now, the only thing left in here unmatched is going to be the ones that needs to review. So same thing on the book transaction side. The only thing that's left unmatched is going to be the transactions that you need to review. You can also unmatch any transaction if any of it is matched by accident. But looking at this one transaction, we'll notice that our amount to reconcile is 0. So this $7,250 is truly an outstanding item, which should not be included in this reconciliation. So with that, we're going to hit reconcile, and that will reconcile this account for the time period that we're in. So go ahead and reconcile, and the system tells us that it's successfully reconciled. And that is the end of this demo. So now that we have a deeper understanding of importing the transactions and applying the match rules, let's now shift our focus to the final segment of today's demo. So over here. So in here, which highlights the powerful reporting and audit support features. And this sections will bring everything together, showcasing how Sage Intacct ensures transparency, compliance, and confidence in your financial reporting. You'll see how reconciliation summary provides a clear overview of the financial state and how exceptions are being handled, as well as some of the most powerful reports that can be utilized to further enhance your experience with Sage Intacct reconciliation. So let's go ahead and start here. And once more, we're going to be navigating to our cash management. So here, instead of going into the bank reconciliation, this time we're going to go to reconciliation history here. So this screen will give you the list of reconciliation that you have ever done in the system for all the checking accounts that are available in the system. So you can see it has the reconciliation for both accounts that we did there. And this first one is the one that we just reconciled. Of course, you can export the reconciliation result into a report. It can be either PDF, Excel, CSV. But here it will give you the total of the amount that's reconciled between the deposits versus the check and charges, as well as the outstanding or in-transit items. So we can see our $7,250 is listed there as an in-transit item. And the outstanding item report will also give you that information. So if you open that up, we'll be able to see what is clearly outstanding during the reconciliation here. Again, we have our 7,250 here. And other than that, with the reconciliation, you also have the option to reopen one if you do realize at a later time that you need to go back and modify anything. They also have a prompt to ask you whether you are sure you want to continue, because if you do, everything in between today versus the reconciliation date will be opened. Now, other than that, you also have the option to attach documents into your reconciliation, for example, your bank statement. So this is helpful if you do want to link that evidence and provide it as a history into your reconciliation. The other report that may be helpful is the register reports, which we're looking at a bank register report here. So you get to select what time period you want to see the report in, the checking account, as well as the reconciliation status. So if you need to refine and narrow down into search for a transaction, this is a good way to see that. In this report here, you will have a cleared column where it will tell you when is the last time or when is the time this transaction is cleared, or it tells you that it's in transit, meaning that it has not been reconciled. So this is a clear and more, I guess, detailed in a tabular format form to the transaction informations. You also have the option to email it directly to anybody, and this is great for team collaborations, or export it into Excel or CSV for further analysis. All right, and this concludes the demo portion of our session today. And of course, what you're seeing today in this demo here is only a tip of the iceberg. There is so much more Sage Intacct can and will offer beyond what's just shown today. And now that we have seen the core workflow, I want to take a moment to highlight some of the exciting new enhancements that Sage Intacct has released over the last several versions, specifically the features that directly supports and improves bank reconciliation process. If you have used Intacct for a while, you will notice that the product team has put a major emphasis on strengthening the cash workflows, transaction clarities, and reconciliation automations. These aren't minor quality of life tweaks. They truly reshape how much effort reconciliation requires. In 2025, Sage Intacct introduced the combined debit and credit matching. This will automatically group the related transactions, like your reversals, offsetting entries, significantly improving the match rate and reducing the manual review. You're not mentally pairing numbers together. Everything you need is already consolidated. And the match rules use this unified amount to compare the transactions more accurately. The next enhancements comes with the 2025 R3 release. We see improved match rules with more precise, customizable conditions. You can now match on partial amounts, check number variations, vendor and customer name keywords, transaction memo patterns, or any combination. This is especially useful for transactions like merchant processors, deposits with varying fees, payroll funding that's different, and utility bills that fluctuates slightly month to month. You can now set the amount tolerance more intelligently. For example, you can match if the bank amount is within X amount dollar of the book amount, or match if the variance equals to a known fee type. And this reduces the number of almost matches that still requires manual review. Match rule now run in the order of priorities. And this means you can structure your rules the same way your brain works. You can match the large and predictable transactions first, and then match the recurring transactions, and then match your deposits, and lastly, match the remaining exceptions. And all of this just means that more items will match automatically. When the match rule fires, Intacct now tells you why it's matched, improving the auditability and making troubleshooting easier. These enhancements allow the team to automate significantly more of the matching process. And lastly, one of the biggest improvements in 2025 is the new bank transaction assistant for file imports. Now, we all know that different bank exports file in different formats, which caused challenge before. Now, with the new assistant, solve that by guiding you through the field mapping, validating the file structure, standardizing the data, and preparing the transaction for reconciliation with much less cleanup. Now, let's take a look at a quick example here. So instead of going to reconciliation, we're going to use this new bank transaction import file function here. Here it will ask us for the checking account. So we're going to select this and hit continue. Now, the next screen you see here is going to be a lot different than what you are used to see in the system. But this now supports a majority of the different file types that a bank can produce. Now let's go ahead and select the file here. And you will notice that I didn't show you the file. That's because the system will process a file and show you the data within it. So here we have 6 different transactions with different type of money flowing in the different directions. So once this looks good, we're just going to confirm our import. Now this just tells you that the import is going to take a few minutes, but here we're doing a demo, so it's completed already. So we're going to go back to our reconciliation and see what we have imported. Again, we have these match rules in place, so we should expect that majority of it has already been matched. So from the looks of our Intacct list of transaction and the bank transaction, we can see 5 out of the 6 transactions had already been matched. So again, checking on the match screen confirmed that for us. Now, on both sides, we're seeing 1 transaction that did not get matched, which is this $3,500. It does look like these are for the same transactions, so we should be able to manually match it. And we can tell they didn't match because the date does not match. They're on the different date between the book and the bank. So we're just going to match here directly. So again, we're just going to select that as our bank transaction to match, and then make sure we don't have amount that's remaining, and then go ahead and match that. Now that you have cleared all the transactions that are coming in from the bank with the new bank import assistant, you can now continue to work on the rest of the reconciliation. Obviously, we'll have a lot more to work on, but that's really how the new bank file transaction assistant works. Now, before we wrap up here today, I do have one last poll questions that I want to check with you guys. Now, what feature would you think would most improve your reconciliation process? The automated bank feed, the matching rules, the import tools, or all of the above? If you're thinking all of the above, you're definitely not alone. And that's the power of having everything built inside your ERP. So, to recap, today we have covered why reconciliation is essential for financial accuracy, what goes wrong when it's done manually, how Sage Intacct automates and strengthens the process, what's new in the recent releases, and how these tools support faster month-end closes and cleaner financials. Reconciliation is no longer just a compliance checklist, but a foundational financial control that helps you run your business with confidence. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I will now pass things back to Brian for final announcements.
Thank you, Ruby. What a great presentation. By the way, are you available for some quick questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, because we've got 4 important questions that we want to pitch to you here in just a moment. And we have time to answer a 5th and 6th. If you have a question, please enter it, and we'll get to those questions in about 1 minute. I want to do a bit of advertising here. We regularly appear or in front of construction back office professionals, CPA firms. Was in Houston on Thursday and Friday at the Texas CPA Society there. We also are available to attend CFMA local chapters, other professional groups for presentations such as the ones appearing on the screen here. The first one is entitled Accelerating the Financial Close, Automation Today, AI Tomorrow. The second, Changing Technology, Creative Disruption, and the Accounting Profession, Thriving in a Blockchain Economy. And then that last presentation entitled Prosperity Through Recurring Revenue, Unleashing the Power of the Subscription Economy has been well received by specialty industry subcontractors providing service maintenance agreements to businesses or consumers after project completion. Just know that we're happy to travel and make these presentations and do so regularly across the state. And then on the next slide, you'll see that next month's webinar will focus on Sage Construction dashboards and reporting. To get that on your calendar, take a picture of that QR code in the left-hand tile, and you'll be registered for that. It also is available for an hour of CPE. And then finally, if you're going to be in Las Vegas for World of Concrete in 2026, we hope you'll stop by booth number N1170 to say hello to the Ledgerable team. We'll be there and looking forward to see you there. Okay, Ruby, I have quite a few questions here. Let me just group a couple of them together. They are related, and the first one is how do I set up my bank feed? And the related question is, do you have any tips for setting up a bank feed connection?
So the bank feed connection is part of Sage Intacct system. So when you set up your checking account, there is a place for you to enable that, and you will just go through the links with your bank credentials in hand so that you can input those information. But the connection is through a Plaid platform. So it's just similar as you to connect the banks for your personal accounts on there.
Very good. Very good. Here's a third related question. Can we test out the bank feed connections and bank reconciliations in our sandbox?
Unfortunately, to my knowledge, the bank feed connection only is established in the production environment. So I don't think, at least from my knowledge, that it is an option yet.
Okay. And then it seems like bank feeds are the topic of the day. Are those bank transactions or feeds coming from a BAI file or a more direct connection? You alluded to Plaid, so probably that's a part of the answer to that question.
Yes, it is not via any files. It is connected directly to the bank. The bank and between the bank and Sage Intacct's bank feed, they use this Plaid as the third-party platform to transit those information. But it is a direct connection.
Okay, okay. And here's a question. What if an item in reconciliation affects job costs? Would it or could it be entered through the bank reconciliation process?
If it is a part of the bank feed, then yes, you can create it as a transaction, depending on which type of transaction you want to create it for. But yes, you can do that through while you're doing reconciliation.
And maybe the point of the question is, can I assign that cost to a job and cost code?
Yes. So if the system is enabled to use the cost code and cost type and job dimensions, then when you're creating the transactions from that when it's coming from the bank, you still have those dimensions available, just like you would with any other transactions in the system.
Good, good. How much will Sage charge for automated bank feeds versus us manually importing the bank feed ourselves?
Um, I don't think there's
Uh,
an additional charge to using the bank feed functions.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
So
can help you. I can help you with that one. Every subscriber to Sage Intacct Construction can connect up to 200 banks at no additional charge. That should take care of most of us. And so the answer is they won't charge you anymore. Here's another good question, and I know we've got 3 minutes left. Would where could I find more resources on the match rules that you talked about in recent releases? It seems promising, and some of the basic match rules we've set up, but struggle with less structured transactions. I guess the big question would be, is there some resources available to understand more about the new match rule capabilities?
yeah, I think the release notes from the past 2, 3 releases are going to be the best starting place to look for those information. Um, so they have a very detailed documentation on how the match rule works with the new functions that they added in these recent releases.
Okay. All righty. Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Ruby, and thanks to those who have attended, and thanks to all who have submitted questions. And I hope that if you have additional questions there on the screen, you see a way to contact us. We'd love to address those directly with you. And look forward to next month's webinar, which is scheduled for January 28th from 12 to 1, entitled Sage Construction Dashboards and Reporting. Until then, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we look forward to seeing you again in 2026.